everybody, we are here with writer, director, producer extraordinaire PJ Starks. He is actually, he released a film called 13 Slays of Christmas back, I would say, I guess it was late 2020. And here's the synopsis. It is on December 24th, 5 seemingly random men are invited to a dive bar, one of my favorites, by a mysterious email. They decide to pass the time by resurrecting the old tradition of telling scary stories on Christmas Eve. And of course, hijinks ensue. So, PJ, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm okay. Should we go by PJ or just P or just PJ?
PJ is fine.
Awesome.
I go by that because I'm not a huge fan of my real name. So.
Oh my God! You care to tell us what your real name is?
Yeah, it's Perry Jr.
That's not bad.
Oh God, it means of the pear tree.
Does it?
And that's like the worst meaning. Like there's no lesser epic meaning for a name than of the pear tree. It's horrible.
Well, look it. I mean, I'm Norman. That means guy from the north. I mean, how silly is that?
I like that much better than of the pear tree.
Of course you would. Of course you would. Now, let's talk about the movie. So how did this project come about?
Okay, so the long and the short of it is my producing partner, Eric Huskisson, and I, I guess I should go back just a little bit. So made Volumes of Blood, put Volumes of Blood out there, did far better than what we expected. My producing partner and I, Eric, we decided, you know what, let's start a company and see if Volumes of Blood is a fluke, and made the sequel. And then the sequel did better than what we anticipated. So then we thought, well, let's go ahead and move forward, because I wanted it to be a trilogy.
Okay.
So I had already had a concept and everything for the third movie, but it was going to be much bigger and larger in scope and everything. So decided that we were going to move forward with Volumes of Blood 3 to finish out that series, which was called Devil's Night. Well, then we spent the better part of about 3.5 years trying to get Devil's Night financed. And it just, can you hear my dog walking around?
Your what?
My dog, she's like, I don't know what she's doing.
Doesn't bother
me. She's like flopping on the floor like a fish. Anyway, I can hear it really good, so I'm assuming maybe you heard something, maybe not. All right, so anyway, so we were unable to get that movie financed, and it finally got to a point where I was really itching to do something. And in 2017, I'd come up with the concept for 13 Slays Till Christmas, but of course it got put on the, it just got put over here. And it was something that maybe we'd look at later on, but we never really anticipated making it anytime soon. So when in about August of 2019, Eric and I had like one of 1,000, like our 10,000th finance meeting, trying to figure out how we're going to get this movie made. And I kind of said, look, I don't think this is happening. And I really think that we could pull 13 Slays off the shelf and get it made, because it was the kind of project where really it was supposed to be just a fun project, and it was going to be a one-off. It wasn't really something that was like, I didn't want it to be crap, but we didn't have to spend a whole lot of capital to make it. So he wasn't too keen on the idea at the time, because we'd spent so much of our time trying to get Devil's Night financed. We had letters of intent from names and all that, and we had done a small Indiegogo thing just to kind of get a little bit of financial support, but nothing was happening. So I said, okay, well, here's what we'll do. You keep moving forward with Devil's Night. I'll move forward with 13 Slays, and we'll have both projects kind of going simultaneously. And whichever one gets the most traction within like the next month, that's the one we can move forward on. And he was like, okay, but he wasn't. His mind was full on Devil's Night. Well, within a month, I had like half the filmmakers involved. I'd reached out to all these people, actors, and all this. So within a month, there was so much more traction happening with 13 Slays that Eric was like, okay, I think this is the one. Let's start moving forward on this. And of course we did. So from August of 2019 until March of 2020, that was really what was supposed to be our pre-production time.
Okay.
And by the time March hit, 3 of the filmmakers had already shot their segments. We were shooting the bulk of the segments here in Owensboro. And then the lockdown happened, and production went into a standstill for a while. And so that's pretty much the process of how 13 Slays came to be. It wasn't a project we were expecting to do, but and that's the funny thing. It's like sometimes you're dead set on doing something, and you know it's going to be the next project, and then something throws a wrench in it, or that door closes and then another door opens, and you're doing something that you never anticipated. And that was 13 Slays.
And the project found you. To explain to everybody, it's an anthology film, obviously. If it wasn't clear before, it's an anthology film where people are telling different little stories on Christmas Eve. So how did you pitch to different filmmakers, to come on board to direct a segment? And what was the initial response?
So I sat down, obviously, from Volumes of Blood to horror stories, I've become like an anthology guy. So I love working with other filmmakers. By the time we got to 13 Slays, I kind of had this like a wish list of other filmmakers that I really wanted to work with. So I just kind of went down the list and in order and said, hey, so here's what we're doing. This is the project. It's, if anything, it's a passion project. There's really no money involved. It's just something where we're all supposed to have fun and a good time. And here's the concept. And like from the get-go, pretty much everybody I talked to down the line was like, yes, love the idea.
That's awesome.
And the other thing too is that everything was being created, like all the content was created for the film. So it wasn't like my pet peeve with a lot of these anthologies that you see get made nowadays, or for a while now, someone will say, well, I'm going to produce an anthology film. And then they get on YouTube and they'll look at films that have been already made and produced. Some have been in the can for like the last 5 years and have already been out there and seen. And then they just contact the filmmaker and say, hey, can we use your movie? And they slap them all together. And there's just, there's no passion in it. There's no fun in it. There's no thought in it. There's no heart.
I mean, technically, yes, they did produce an anthology, but it certainly didn't have the substance.
Right. I mean, they put movies together, I guess, and it just, maybe there was heart made when the shorts were done because it was being done by filmmakers who weren't anticipating it being a part of a feature film. But the catalyst for what became said anthology with all these random movies, there's nothing behind that. There's no substance to it. So that's why, like all the anthologies that I've done up to this point, everything's created for that project, because I want some sort of cohesive narration or something. There needs to be something there that kind of helps tie everything together. And plus, it also helps if they all look like they were shot by the same group of people. In 13 Slays, they weren't. That one, so that was kind of a concern to some degree, but then once we kind of knew along the way, we kept in touch with all the filmmakers, so we knew who the cast was, we knew who their crew was, so we always had them like we didn't tell them who to cast. We didn't tell them who they could crew their films, but we wanted to be a part of the process the whole way along, just because we wanted to make sure that by the time it was all said and done, that it did have that cohesiveness, not just from a narrative standpoint, but also the look.
Yeah, that the same DNA was wrapped up.
Right.
In the whole,
right.
Yeah.
And that was and I think the other thing that really interested and got the other filmmakers excited was they had full creative control over their concepts. So we didn't tell them what they were going to make. We didn't tell them how to make it. We gave them a series of guidelines that they had to follow, and a few things that they did have to add into their story, but it wasn't anything that was, it wouldn't bog the creative process down. So ultimately they got to say, okay, this is the story I want to tell, and this is how I want to film it. And so they had all that control. They just had to keep us in the loop and let us know that they were actually doing it, because we had set a deadline for ourselves. Because the movie was supposed to originally come out in December of last year.
So, well, I thought it did. Didn't it come out in December of 2020?
Well, it was, we had our premiere here in Owensboro in late November, and the movie was then supposed to release in December. But what ended up happening is there was like this massive polyurethane shortage. So the
butterfly flapped its wings,
pretty much. So we were set to release in December, and then there was this big polyurethane shortage because medical companies were buying all that up so they could make supplies that they needed, which was important. And the replicators weren't able to get their hands on Blu-ray and DVD cases or cellophane wrap, and that ended up pushing the movie back. So it actually came out in March of this year.
Wow. And just wow. And how did the pandemic affect shooting?
Well, so when the lockdown happened, the segments we were filming here stopped. So they went into like this holding pattern.
And you're in Kentucky.
We didn't know when things were, like everybody. We didn't know when things were going to let up. We didn't know when the mask mandate was going to go away. We didn't know. At that point, I was expecting us to be burning bodies in the streets in like 6 months, because I thought, we're getting ready to film this movie, but instead the apocalypse is happening.
Us horror fans, totally prepared.
Yeah. So I was expecting to never make a movie, but instead be running for my life, trying to not be eaten by my neighbors. But luckily, I'm pretty sure I could take my neighbors, though. So they would probably be the ones getting eaten. Because I will eat another person to stay alive.
Listen, see, here's the thing. We think about these things, Yeah. We play these out in our heads, and we're like, hey.
Yeah. So I hope none of my neighbors see this, because
I know they're like, honey, Abner.
But so the same thing kind of happened with all the to go back to your question, the same thing kind of happened with all the other filmmakers. We reached out to everybody. We said, look, none of us know what's happening. We have shut down all of our productions. We want you to do the same, because we don't know what's safe yet. So we and some of them had already made the decision and were like, yeah, that's what we were planning on doing. We were going to let you know, but we just wanted to reach out and just say, look, it's not a good idea to do it right now. It's not safe. So we held off, and then I think it was middle of June, things really started to ease up. Of course, the mask mandates and all that were still in place. But a lot of other restrictions and stuff started to ease. So in June and July, then we started kind of reaching out to everybody and saying, all right, look, we think it's okay to start moving forward to shoot, if you can, based on what your restrictions and mandates are in your area. Because there were 13 films that were made. 9 of them took place outside of, no, I'm sorry. 7 of them were shot outside of Kentucky. And so, every state had like a different set of rules.
Got it.
So, what we did though, moving forward is when we did our sets, everybody had to wear masks. We sanitized stuff. We had hand sanitizer everywhere. We tried to keep people separated as much as possible. Everybody had assigned seating, and we kind of set in place some of the same protocols that a lot of other businesses and things were doing at the time, because we wanted to do everything we possibly could to keep everybody safe and healthy. And then we kind of reached out to all the other filmmakers and said, hey, look, this is what we're doing. We would really like for you to kind of do the same. And thankfully, by the time it was all said and done, we finished filming in October and nobody got sick.
Thank goodness.
From shooting on our film. I do know some other films that unfortunately had some issues, but thankfully we really dodged a bullet and nobody became ill. So
but that polyurethane.
I know.
So why a bar on Christmas?
Okay.
And have you ever spent Christmas Eve in a bar?
Well, I'll go with I'll answer your second question first. No, I actually don't drink. I come from I've been in bars and I have friends who drink. I'm not like opposed to drinking, but I come from a long line of alcoholics, abusive alcoholics. And I decided that that's not really my thing. So I figured, what causes them to be like that? Probably the alcohol. And then I decided that I just would never do it, and I would never become that. So I just never.
Good man.
Drank.
Good for you.
Thank you. I've had people who tried to get me drunk, and some people think it's hilarious. Like some people will have me try. I've tried alcohol. Like one time, somebody gave me Goldschlager, and
terrible.
I'm pretty sure I do what.
It's terrible, but go ahead.
It is terrible, and I'm pretty sure just from having a shot of it, I was hungover the next day. That's how much.
That's so heavy. There's so much sugar in there that'll kick your ass.
Oh yeah.
The sugar.
I mean, I'm kind of a big guy. They thought I was just being stupid and ridiculous, but I'm pretty sure I had some. And then actually, so when we did the Volumes of Blood premiere afterwards, we had the premiere party at a local bar, and while we were there, someone gave me a fireball, and
again, terrible.
Die.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's not even
my
cool.
whole esophagus was on fire, and I was asking people like, is that supposed to happen? Am I dying?
Is this anaphylaxis?
What is happening? I could feel my stomach. Why do people do this to themselves? I don't get it. You can feel your stomach.
Why do people do anything? Yeah. True. So do you have a favorite short in the film or no?
Oh, in 13 Slays?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's probably there's probably some filmmakers that would be like, I'm not going to say that because then it makes somebody feel bad.
Don't make me
let's
choose
face it,
amongst my children.
Look, you got to have a thick skin when you do this. So hopefully I don't offend anyone. Honestly, probably my favorite segment in 13 Slays is the Killer Caribou segment.
Okay.
Which was directed by John Hale.
Okay.
And I won't give it away, but it's about a couple hunters who come across an individual, and they're being stalked by some killer caribou. And you can see them in the trailer, and it's Cody Ruck did the special effects for it. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his last name. Cody, if I'm saying your last name wrong, I'm sorry. But I'm pretty sure I'm saying his first name right. So at least, 50%'s not bad.
I mean,
but he did all he did all the puppetry and stuff with the caribou and the special effects. It is phenomenally done. But I mean, and this is the political part of me, right? So truthfully though, everybody across the board really did a fantastic job considering the restrictions, the challenges that we had, everything there were Hollywood productions that were spending millions of dollars shut down and not doing anything and we managed to get this micro budget movie made. I think, and probably I don't go around like bragging about this or anything, but so Jeffrey Reddick, who created
Such a
Final
good guy.
Destination,
Super good guy.
oh yeah, Jeffrey is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, he's from Kentucky,
Yeah.
and that's how I got to know him. And then we kept in touch and we talked, and he's been super supportive. And I reached out to him, was like, hey, we're doing this, do you want a cameo in it? And he was like, yeah, I want a cameo in the movie. But when we got it done, I sent it to him to watch, and then one night he called me and was just going on and on and on about how much he loved the movie and how impressed he was with the film. And then he was like, can I ask you what your budget is? So I told him, and he like almost had an aneurysm. And he was like, I got to tell you what, he goes, I know people here in LA making $5 million movies that don't even look half as good as what you guys managed to make on practically nothing. And I think that's a testament to everybody that was involved with the project. Because now we did have some filmmakers who had to step away because of the pandemic, and others, and then of course I went back to the list, brought some new ones on. It was just a couple, but the majority of everybody stuck with it. And some sequences did have to change the narrative and everything based on what was happening. But I mean, but everybody was so flexible and so passionate and willing to make this project as good as it possibly could, despite everything that was going on. And just looking at it, you can tell, because it looks, and like I kind of said this earlier, like I didn't expect it to look like a piece of shit. But the final product of it far exceeds anything I thought it was going to be.
Very cool.
Is, I guess, the best way I could describe it. It's
awesome.
It's so much better than I originally was intending for it to be. Like I said, you don't go into anything wanting to make a bad movie. But with all the hurdles and the challenges we had, there was that fear in the back of our minds that was like, man, how much is this going to hinder our ability for this to be something special? And it didn't hinder any of it. I don't, maybe the pandemic made it better, because everybody was we were fighting something against something,
right,
to make this passion project.
Against all odds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So how can people see the film?
Okay. So right now we have started submitting it to festivals. I mean, technically you can order it. We have started submitting to festivals, so hopefully it'll start screening at a few of those within the remainder of the year. But if you go to screamteamreleasing.com, you can get a Blu-ray copy. It looks like this. But this is what it looks like. There's actually 13 special features on there. There's like a whole bunch of stuff, making ofs from almost every segment in the movie. Although one of them is hidden, so you got to find it. So it's like a little Christmas present when you find it, and you'll understand what that means.
Easter egg.
Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, so screamteamreleasing.com. We're working on getting it on some streaming services. So hopefully by, towards the end of the year, going into Christmas, we'll, because we were robbed of Christmas last year, and we're hoping that, we're going to get that gift this year. But yeah, please check it out. A lot of super talented people worked on this. And it's kind of a who's who. If you're really into independent horror, there is a lot of names attached to this. People from, like Michael Merchant, who was in House Shark, all the way up to Sadie Katz, who was in Wrong Turn 6. So I mean, there's all kinds of faces and names attached to this thing. Like I said, I mean, this is a really, really special project to me personally. And yeah, I would love for anybody, if you love Christmas horror, this is it.
Christmas,
Right.
yeah, Christmas and horror just seem to go together. I mean,
Yeah.
it's true. It definitely
Yeah.
does. Well, listen, everybody, you now know one of, the perfect stocking stuffer. And you have plenty of time to get it. So there are, yes, that. So there are no excuses for, oh, I forgot to get mom something. It's right there, you dingus.
What mother would not like, saying Killer Christmas Garland?
Seriously. So, I mean, my mom would be like, "That's cool."
Yeah.
Anyway, so listen, best of luck on the release,
Thank you.
and let's push to make this one of the most profitable indie horror Christmas horror films made during a pandemic in Kentucky.
I like where you're going with this.
All right, buddy. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, and
Thank you
hit
so
us
much
up
for
if you
having me.
need anything else.
Absolutely.
All right, adios.